You're listening to Wild About Arizona, the official podcast of the Arizona Game and Fish Department.
And welcome to Wild About Arizona. I'm John Treeweiler with the Arizona Game and Fish Department. From the tall trees to sides of cliffs, even sometimes in a saguaro cactus, you may find a bald eagle nesting there. That's what we're talking about today, is bald eagles in Arizona. With us is Tuk Jacobson, our Raptor Management Coordinator here at the Arizona Game and Fish Department. Tuk, thanks for being with us.
Hello, I'm happy to be here.
So first of all, tell us about your role here at Arizona Game and Fish and kind of what you do. I mean, you work with all raptors, not just bald eagles.
Yeah, I'm the Raptor Management Coordinator for the state of Arizona, and responsible for all of the raptor species across the state. However, bald eagles and in the last 10 years, golden eagles have taken up the great majority of our time.
Well, and they're such an impressive bird. I mean, talk to us a little about just kind of the biology of bald eagles in general. They're so fascinating.
Yeah, no, bald eagles are one of those that are fascinating in many ways. One, just their sheer size, their symbolism as our nation's symbol, and as well as just the fact that you can see them when you're out fishing and so forth. But tied with that is also the recovery and conservation story that bald eagles hold for us, where you had a population of a very revered bird that was almost driven to extinction, and with decades of work, we were able to bring this bird back to recovered status. It's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, well, I mean, so talk to us a little about that, because the bald eagle was endangered right back in the 70s, right? It was put on the endangered species list?
Yes. So with the creation of the Endangered Species Act, bald eagles were one of those species that were immediately listed. And that was largely due to contamination of DDT in our water systems, and it accumulated in our waterways, accumulated in the fish and the ducks, which is the main food source for bald eagles, and it created a situation where the eggs that they were laying were so thin and brittle that they couldn't hold in the moisture, so they'd dry out and desiccate, or they'd crack when the adults were trying to move the eggs. And so it caused massive reproductive failure across the U.S. because of that issue. Once with the banning of DDT and the slow reduction of those chemicals in the environment, and coupled with the long lifespan of bald eagles, we were able to get those levels down to the point where they were able to be reproductively successful again and produce young and then grow to the population sizes that we have today.
And the population size in Arizona, was low.
Yeah. So in the early 1970s, there were only about 12 known bald eagle territories in the entire state. Now, with that said, it's a big state. There's a lot of Arizona that hadn't been fully surveyed, so there were additional territories that we hadn't found yet. But those surveys in the 1970s and 80s, we had found pretty much all of those, and we still only had about 25 to 30 territories at that time. And then from there, we just annual surveys and conservation work, protection, and development of the program that's been going on for over 4 decades now, has seen that population really grow through the 90s, 2000s, through today.
Well, and over the 4 decades, you said you're at about 12, maybe a little more known breeding pairs. And what are we at today?
Today we're up to 94 bald eagle territories across the state. With those, about 75 to 80 of them are occupied in any given year.
That's impressive.
It's pretty impressive. You talk to biologists 25, 30 years ago, and they thought Arizona maybe could hold 50 pairs of bald eagles, and we're basically double that. So we don't put an upper limit on that anymore. We just want to make sure our population is stable or growing, and make sure we do what we can to give them whatever chance we can to make sure they're successful in raising their young on an annual basis, and And it's those young that we produce today that are able to help drive that growth and in the future years when they become breeding adults 5 years from now.
Well, you've been involved with the program for so long. What's that like, Tuck, to be able to be a part of that, to see it go from such a low number of breeding territories to, over to 94 today?
Yeah, it's been pretty amazing. I've been with the Bald Eagle program here in Arizona for a little over 20 years now, and in that time, I've seen that population double. There was about 40 breeding areas when I started in 2002, and now we're up to 94 by the end of next year, 95, 96, 97, who knows? I'm looking forward to that day where it's a triple digit, but throughout that process, there's birds that I banded 20 years ago that I put a band on, and they're out there producing young today. There's birds that I've rescued that 5 years later I see them out and producing young. It's one of those that I've been here long enough that I've seen that firsthand real impact of the efforts that we put in today and being successful and really helping that growth in years to come.
It's kind of like watching your kids grow up almost.
Pretty much.
But it's just a great testament to the work that our biologists do and yourself and the men and women of the Raptor program. I mean, just a great testament to that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of those things that the challenges we faced years ago are some of them are the same and some of them are different and changing. 20 years ago, we didn't realize that we'd have motorized parachutes and paragliders flying over our territories and flushing birds off the nest. But that's something that we work on educating that community on, and now we've got drones as a growing recreational practice. So it's one of those programs that continually shifts as the status on the ground changes.
Okay, where can you find bald eagles in Arizona? I mean, just about anywhere?
Pretty much just about anywhere that you have water. On a year-round basis, the bald eagles like to eat fish and ducks. American coots are one of their favorite waterfowl. So if you have water and fish and waterfowl, there's a good chance you'll see a bald eagle in those areas also. In the wintertime, we've got northern migrants that come down, and then you'll see them in less aquatic habitats where they're eating on carrion and rabbits and prairie dogs and roadkill off the side of the road. So you can see them pretty much everywhere, but water's the main location.
It's funny you talk about what they eat. I remember I went on a eagle banding with you, and when you guys lowered into the nest, they said that they had a skunk. It didn't smell very pleasant.
No, sometimes you find odd things in those nests, definitely. But the skunk we're always hope we don't run into.
So talk about that, the kind of, and you touched on a little bit, but the work that you're doing to increase the eagle population. I know a big part of that is, like we just mentioned, when you go out and band these nestlings, basically, right? I mean, it's just talk about that, because it's so cool. I had the opportunity to go with you on one and witness it firsthand. It's something most people will never get to see, and probably, maybe don't even know that you're out there doing this, but you're literally climbing trees or rappelling down the side of a cliff into this nest. It's pretty impressive work.
Yeah, no, the banding is a big part of the project. It's coupled with the band reading, so we'll band every nestling that we can access the nest. There's some trees that are too dead for us to safely be able to get into them, and some cliffs that are just so remote we can't get to them in a reasonable amount of time. But putting those bands on those nestlings, they'll fledge from the breeding area. They'll migrate north during the hot summer months, come back to Arizona in the fall, winter, spring, and pretty much fly all around Arizona, check out all the waterways, check out where all the breeding territories are. And by the time they get to 4, 5, 6 years old, they've got a good idea of where all the bald eagle breeding habitat is, and they start looking for an opening. Once they start nesting, they're tied to that nest spot. We've got a spot where we can go back with our high-powered scope and be able to read those bands, so we can tell how old these birds are, how long they breed in an area, how many mates they may have in a lifetime, and really get an idea of what our mortality rates, our survivorship rates are. It gives us a chance to take a close look at the population and make sure any of those key factors aren't changing over time.
So it's important to do that, to be able to get out there and band them when they're young.
Yeah. That banding gives us that lifetime of information that is just invaluable as far as a resource manager, biologist. Without that information, we'd be guessing a lot on what's going on, and those bands give us those specifics that allow us to really look in detail into what's going on with bald eagles. Well,
and like you said, you've seen eagles today that you banded, 20 years ago?
Oh, absolutely. As far as longevity goes, we had we did have one bald eagle that was banded in central Texas that immigrated to Arizona. It's the one immigrant that we've got documented in our population. It probably happens more than we're able to document, because not all bald eagles are banded. But that male that came in, he was nesting up in northern Arizona, and he lived to be 32 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the longest documented here in Arizona for sure.
And is that normal for him to have come all the way from Texas?
No, that's not normal. Typically, bald eagles, from our banding, it looks like about 94% of them nest within 200 kilometers of their natal area, the nest that they hatched from and fledged from. And so that's 120 miles or so. So for him to have traveled 1,000 miles to a new breeding area, that's pretty atypical for bald eagles. They usually come home to nest.
Well, welcome to Arizona. We're happy to have had them. So talk to us about the breeding season, Tuck, when that happens. I know that's usually that's winter time, right?
Yeah, that's something that shifted a little bit over the years. Okay. Back when I started, the breeding season was generally from January through May into mid to late June, maybe. And then as our population's grown, and they've expanded into higher elevation habitats, as well as it's gotten warmer here and milder winters here in recent years, we're seeing egg laying happening in December, so a month or two earlier than normal for some of our lower elevation birds. And then those are fledging in April or May, and then our higher elevation territories, many of those aren't laying eggs until March or even as late as April. So on a statewide basis, that breeding season ranges from December through August.
Oh, wow. That's a lengthy breeding season.
It is. Keeps us busy.
Well, and I know when breeding season happens, especially in December, you guys, and you kind of touched on this with, some of the new challenges that you face with drones and, paragliding and all that stuff. You guys you put out some closures in certain areas to really, protect the nest, because that's really important.
Yeah, the nest site's really the thing that's going to drive whether or not these birds are able to produce young successfully in a given year. And so if there's a site that's close to a lot of human activity, we usually put a team of nest watchers out there to monitor the progress of those breeding attempts and document what normal behaviors going on with the adults. And then they're also documenting the type of human activity, recreation that's going on in the area, the distance that recreation is from the nest site, as well as the adult's reaction to it. So when we come to an area and a site where the adults are showing negative impacts from the recreation, that's where we'll start considering the use of a closure.
Okay, and you touched on it, and I was going to ask about it, but the nest watchers, that's unique in itself, is the nest watcher program that we have here in Arizona.
Yeah, we've got a nest watcher program dates back to 1978. There was a volunteer effort between Maricopa Audubon Society and the U.S. Forest Service, and they had some sites on the lower Verde that had a lot of recreation. They had just need to monitor these sites, see what's going on with the bald eagles, and from that, it's grown into the program that it is today. It's grown from that volunteer effort to what we have now, where we contract about 15 to 20 nest watchers annually, and we set them up in teams of 2 and assign them a territory, and they'll monitor that basically day in, day out, from the time that they're incubating eggs through the time that those young hatch and eventually grow to full size and fledge.
And I mean, it's impressive to, and it's neat work that gets done. But these folks, I mean, like you said, they're basically like living almost at the nest site with these eagles.
Yeah, living at the nest site at a distance.
Right.
But yeah, no, they're basically camped out from early February through May, June. Oftentimes when their nestlings fledge here at a lower elevation, we'll move them to a higher elevation site to where they'll watch a secondary breeding area on into July or August.
Well, it's got to be impressive too for you, because I know in your industry, the folks that are doing this work, they're they're young, they're recent college graduates, they're really into this work. It's got to be so neat for you to see these folks just so intrigued and so thrilled about bald eagles.
Oh, absolutely. They. I think it's a good program for gaining experience in biology. They write a summary report at the end, so they get some report writing experience, and then being able to watch a breeding attempt from start to end, they get a really good idea and insight of these birds and their biology, their nesting biology, how things change over the season. And there's definitely a transition there. There are times of the year when the eggs hatch, that the adult's behavior is going to change a little bit. And I always get calls from new teams being like, "Hey, something's different today. What's going on?" And you count back the days, and you're like, "All right, it's about 35 days. You've probably got to hatch. This is what you'll start seeing." The other spot is where those nestlings, even after when they hatch, they're not able to thermoregulate yet. So everyone's pretty aware that the bald eagles have to be on those eggs, keep them warm before they hatch. But even after they hatch, there's about a 3 to 4 week period that those nestlings aren't able to thermoregulate. And you have to have those adults there to keep those nestlings warm. But as they transition, the nestlings grow their down. They're able to have the size and feather coverage in order to thermoregulate, at which point the adults all of a sudden stop spending all their time on the nest, and that freaks out the nest watchers a little bit. Oh no, they're not on the nest, something's going wrong, and you gotta let them know that that's normal at that stage. But one of the big benefits of having those nest watchers out there is those nestlings, as they get closer to being able to fledge, that's a time when nestlings will often jump from the nest. They think they can fly, they can't yet, or a big gust of wind blows them when they're trying to fly, and they end up on the ground. And having the nest watchers there to let us know when that happens gives us a chance to go out and grab those birds, climb that tree, put them back in the nest, and give them those couple of days that they need before they're able to fly successfully.
Oh, so if they fall, hopefully they can be rescued and put back in the nest.
Yep, absolutely. We've rescued hundreds of bald eagle nestlings over the years in just that scenario.
And I know it's cool because on the banding that I got to go on with you took some nest watchers with, and it's really kind of like absolutely full circle for them because they got to assist you and your crew banding these nestlings. I don't think it was the ones they were watching, but it was another nest. But I mean, that's got to be just such an incredible experience as well.
Yeah, that's something that we always try to make sure that we provide that experience to nest watchers. I mean, there are eyes and ears out on the ground. They're monitoring these sites sun up to sundown, 10 days on, 4 days off schedule. And with that, it's one way that we're able to give back to them a little bit and offer them an opportunity to assist us with those bandings and see those nestlings up close and kind of see the whole processing, the measurements we take and the keel measurements to assess their health and so forth. So it's one of those experiences that nest watchers definitely look forward to and are appreciative that we're able to provide it to them.
It's impressive. Where can people tuck? I know you said that, bald eagles basically anywhere there's water in Arizona, but if you're a wildlife photographer, or maybe you just want to take out your binoculars and go see a bald eagle in the wild, where's the best spot or where's a good place for folks around the state to do that?
Well, there's good places all over. The worst place is right at a nest. So don't be trying to
go to the nest.
Don't go to the nest. The eagles don't spend all their time at the nest, but right here on the lower Salton Verde River, we've got our highest density of nesting bald eagles in the state. So you've got eagles foraging and flying up and down the Salton Verde rivers. But if you're around a nest site at all, stay away from the nest. Beyond that, though, Lower Lake Mary in the wintertime has a lot of wintering bald eagles. A lot of times you can spend some time at Lower Lake Mary and see adults and 3-year-olds and juveniles and get the whole plumage span of bald eagles during the wintertime in that area. Any of your high mountain lakes, you'll often see bald eagles if they're nesting or not. Pretty much any of those waterways in central Arizona, you've got a good chance of seeing bald eagles these days.
Okay. Good to know. So I wanted to ask you about this because I mentioned it at the top, and I know you and I worked on this kind of right around when I first started here at Game and Fish, but you had a site that you saw which you had never seen before, and this is an eagle nest in a saguaro cactus. And, here's this iconic symbol of the United States, the bald eagle, and basically, kind of our symbol of Arizona, the cactus, right? And there's a bald eagle nest and an eagle right in a saguaro cactus. And that is so unique, it is so rare, and it's the first time, in decades that you guys had actually seen that, right?
Yeah, it's something I remember when I was getting trained in 2002. We were in the helicopter flights and in between known territories, and the guy that was training me, he's like, "All right, keep your eyes out on all these saguaros because eagles might nest in there." There were some records that were found from trading posts that mentioned, there's a bald eagle nest in a saguaro. That was the extent of the record. We didn't know if they ever actually used it, if it was just assumed to be a bald eagles. It just said bald eagle nest in a saguaro. And this was back in the 1800s, went from the record. And through all of the decades of work, we'd never actually encountered a bald eagle nest in a saguaro. We kept looking for it. And in 2020, we finally found it. Bald eagle nest in a saguaro. So my first phone call was to that guy that was training me to let him know that we finally found one.
What did he say?
Oh, he was ecstatic. He was super excited about it, for sure.
And what was that like because you saw it from the helicopter, right?
I did not.
Okay.
It was my other coworkers were in the helicopter when they saw it.
Okay.
So they flew it from the helicopter, and then I saw it from the boat. We had taken a boat out to the site to check it out. So I saw it from the water.
What? Were you just like totally in shock when you saw it? You were like, "Oh my gosh, it does exist."
It's one of those reports where it's like, all right, it's probably a red tail or maybe an osprey, and you get out there and you're like, oh no, it's really an eagle, and they are incubating. They've got eggs. They successfully produced one young that year.
Wow. That's impressive. And for folks listening, you did take a picture of it, and we have probably, if you go to the our Arizona Game and Fish Instagram account, you probably have to scroll back a little bit because it was 2020 when you found that. But we have a picture of it if people want to see, and I remember that made like international headlines.
It did. There's a lot of people who were asking questions about that nest. But if you Google it and you see a picture of a bald eagle nest in a saguaro, that's it. It's the only one we know of.
That is impressive. And if we've talked about the camera before, the Eagle Cam that we have, and that's a nice way too. If people can't get out and see an eagle nest, or and you don't want to get close to an eagle nest like you said, so that's a really cool glimpse that we are able to offer folks if it's up and running, and if there is an eagle nesting in that nest, to be able to just watch that online. And sometimes when there are eagles in that nest, on years they have been, it's been a really cool sight to see.
Yeah, no, it's been great to see that. And our problem out there has been the male has not been the most dutiful father. So hopefully that'll change here, and he'll learn what to do, and learn that he needs to take part in the incubation. But as soon as he does that, we're hoping to be able to have that camera going throughout the entire nesting process, and see those birds progress from eggs to nestlings to full-grown fledglings. So. Something to keep an eye on and watch. The other option that people have if they are going out and they want to see eagles and see some of that nesting is go to some of these sites where we've got nest watchers, and the nest watchers will help answer any questions that you have, and they're watching from a distance that's safe and not impacting those breeding eagles. So. Go out and visit our nest watchers, have a talk with them, learn about it a little bit, and definitely heed their guidance on the recommendations on distance and so forth, and closure boundaries.
Yeah, because they're extremely knowledgeable about these birds.
Absolutely.
You've been doing this a long time, Tuk. What's the best part of your job?
Oh, there's so many good parts of my job. You know what? One thing that I really enjoy personally, as far as my job goes, you have all your wins. Where you've got your eagles that you read their band and you're like, oh, that's the one I saved that the whole nest had fallen, and we built a new nest and put it back up in the nest, and the adults started taking care of it, and now he's making babies of his own. That part of it's awesome. But when I'm out in the field and sharing some of the work we do with nest watchers who have never seen an eagle up close, or run into a family that's out boating and they ask what I'm doing, and tell them I'm surveying for the eagles at the lake, and they've never seen an eagle before, and being able to put that scope up and give them that close look of the eagle, and just the excitement in their eyes, and that sharing that experience has been really special over the years.
So if people are out and about and they see a biologist with a scope, hey, don't be afraid to approach, especially if it's you, right? You're happy to educate them.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, perfect. Well, Tuk, I know you're busy. Not only do you handle bald eagles, but all raptors in Arizona, so you've got a lot going on. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us and educate us about bald eagles in Arizona and share some cool stories.
No problem at all. It's been great.
Thanks for listening. Visit us online at www.azgfd.gov.